Welcome to The Gabrielle Lara Show, a podcast dedicated to normalizing the messy middle of entrepreneurship. I am your host, Gabrielle Lara, and I invite entrepreneurs from all walks of life onto this podcast to share what they navigated to get from where they were to where they are now. My hopes of this podcast is to help you feel more seen and heard in your entrepreneurial journey as you navigate your own version of the messy middle. I appreciate you so much for being here. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome back to another episode of the Gabrielle Lara Show. I have Krystal Woods with me here today, and if any of you guys are into human design, then you have likely heard about her before. She's such a beautiful soul. I have met her in person a handful of times now, and it's just being in her energy. I just feel so grounded and light. Like you just have something about you, Krystal, that is just so grounding and beautiful. And so I've been dying to get her onto the show. She is here now. And I have had a lot of you actually, especially clients who are listening, ask me about human design. And I don't have a single freaking clue, but I know that that Krystal does. She knows a lot about it. And so I'm going to hand this off to Krystal, and she's really going to walk us through her story of how she got into human design, what that looks like for her now, and any messy that she had to navigate in between. So, Krystal, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to your listeners for tuning in. I'm so excited to be here too, and thank you for everything you said. I love your energy too. Your energy is very nurturing,
Oh,
and
thank you.
yeah, I appreciate that. So thank you so much. I was also laughing when you were saying it. Any messy you've had to navigate, because I'm like, that's my entire life. My entire life has been messy. But I always say your mess is your message, especially if you have a one line in your human design profile, which I do. Those of
Wow.
you who are human design nerds, I'm a 1-3 emotional manifester. So I operate pretty differently from most people on the planet. And being a 1-3, my story to entrepreneurship has been very organic. And when we were at that retreat last month in upstate New York, I shared I have never had a 9 to 5 job. I never
Mm.
have. And so, it's not like I was in this corporate career and I realized that I'm so good at what I do, but I don't want to work for anybody else. So let me go work for myself. It was really like I was in the bar and restaurant industry for over a decade, and I was bumbling along trying to, you know, figure out what I wanted to do and fulfill my potential and like all of these things. And so I was on track to go to grad school and become a licensed therapist as well as a researcher. I really wanted to do work with vets, mind body connection with vets with PTSD and TBIs and all of that. So that was the path that I was on. And I had recently moved back to Hawaii. So I moved to Hawaii for the second time. I had moved in with my partner and accidentally got pregnant a month later. So we were not together for very long. I got pregnant, and it was this weird thing where initially there was a lot of panic. I was 27 years old. Like I had just graduated from undergrad not that long before that, was applying to grad school, was looking for bartending and restaurant managing jobs, and I got pregnant. No money in savings, just like kind of a mess. But at that time, it was like this moment of the deepest clarity and purpose that I had ever felt. And I was like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm going to have this kid. So, that began this really anchoring into this journey of being the best version of me that I could be, whatever that meant. I didn't know what that meant yet. And it wasn't like I wasn't into self-development previously, because I was very into yoga and meditation and all of that, but this just took it to the next level. And so at that time I started getting into like a direct marketing online business, um, at the coercion of my mother. And it was wellness driven, and so that was like really in my wheelhouse in some ways, because fitness and wellness and health have always been passions of mine. But in so many other ways, it was really misaligned for me. And now knowing my human design and how my energy operates and just being a manifester, it's like, of course, it just wasn't for me. But it taught me so much about online business, and it taught me so much about how many of the things about branding and relationships and coaching and self development and personal growth comes so naturally to me. And so I was really like picking up all these breadcrumbs to my purpose here on earth. And simultaneously, I was learning how to step into my leadership as a woman as I was preparing to give birth to my child, which I did at home, by the way. I really went sort of like an unconventional route, of course. I have an Aquarius moon for those of you astrology nerds. And so, after that, I was still trying to make this network marketing business work, and it just wasn't really happening. And I was feeling really, really defeated and disappointed by that. And I was really feeling like there was something wrong with me, that I couldn't make this thing work, that I couldn't be like, top 1% of the company. And like, it just felt like I was spinning on this hamster wheel and I wasn't going anywhere, but I was exhausted. And so I put it down and I took a break, and, I just I found human design, I think, right at that time. And I
Wow.
was driving in the car and my son was sleeping in the back, and I started listening to this podcast episode, and they were talking about human design, which I had never heard of before. But by the end of the episode, my whole body was shaking. I was sobbing. I was having this like visceral reaction. And I knew, like with every cell of my body, I knew that the trajectory of my life had just changed and that I was about to go down this new rabbit hole. And as a 1-3 emotional manifester, this was like a huge urge for me. I bought the books, I joined the courses, I hired like I just really went 1000% in, and all I did was read charts. And the first time I looked at a chart, I remember it making like perfect sense to me, and sharing it with a friend and her being like, it's insane that you understand this, because this is like, I don't get it at all, but it made perfect sense to me. And so it was just like that confirmation that yes, you're on the path. Yes, you found the next thing. Yes, this is like, just give into it. And so I did. And that is the foundation upon which I started building my own business. And I think it was like, what does she say? Everything is figure outable.
Yes, Marie Forleo,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I swear she's like a 1-3 profile in human design, because it's like, oh, I need a website. Okay, well, let's figure that out. I figured out how to build out my own website. Okay, I need to, I'm going to create a course. How do I do that? Let me figure that out. So it's like I really did build this business that supports me and my family over the last few years on like a hunch,
Wow.
you know?
That's so badass. That's so badass. Oh my gosh.
So the entire process has been, can I swear?
Of course. Oh my god, yes,
The
absolutely.
entire process has been messy as fuck.
Yes.
It's so messy.
Yes.
And I still like, I show up and I'm like, guys, look at, and I'm all confident and whatever. And people are like, wow, you just like don't give a fuck. I'm like, I totally do. It's so messy behind the scenes, and I feel like I'm messy all the time, but it's so I love when people tell me like your energy is so grounding. And I'm like, that's great, because I
Yeah.
feel so chaotic.
Oh, but like not at all. Like in person, it's just like so calm and zen, and you're always wearing like the best outfits. And I'm like, she just got her shit together. And maybe it's like maybe more of this internal knowing that like you know yourself so well. Like I just feel that from you, where it's like the self awareness and just like knowing that you know your gift and you're going after it, and just knowing that like as you said, behind the scenes always a shit show in business. Like everyone's behind the scenes is shit shows, and just like still showing up in that confidence anyways, because you know that this is your thing. And I remember you sharing in New York when we were talking human design, you were talking to the group, you said like I saw that chart and I just felt at home. Like it just made sense. And if anyone listening has seen their own human design chart, like it's a foreign language. Like I wouldn't even know. Whenever I look at mine, I'm like, I have no fucking clue what that means at all. But for you, it's like it just clicked. And it's like your soul called you to that. And it's really interesting how that happened the moment that you let that other job go and you just stepped back. It's like you were in the receiving mode of just being able to like hear that podcast episode.
Yeah. Yeah, it really did. We get tunnel vision so often. And I think that when I observe entrepreneurs, there's so many common denominators about us. A lot of us are impulsive, a lot of us are controlling, a lot of us are deeply value freedom, and a lot of us get this tunnel vision where we're
Mm,
so hyper focused on an outcome. And then we can make the mistake of getting hyper focused on how we're going to achieve that outcome. And when that happens, when we do that, we close ourselves off to all these other possibilities of achieving that outcome or of completely changing course, which is what happened for me,
mhm,
because I was like, well, obviously this isn't working for me. You know, yes, was I making extra money? Uh-huh. But it was just to the point where I'm like, I have been spinning my wheels for so many years and I know that I'm great at what I'm doing and it's not enough. It's not enough.
mm,
And so I got to just like chill for a second.
mhm,
And I talk about this with my students and my clients quite a bit, really anchoring into whatever stage you're in. And when you're in entrepreneurship, we go through these cycles, these seasons, just like, the seasons outside. We go through these seasons of entrepreneurship where you have to be able to recognize when you're in the season of just hanging back and playing and being curious, because every time we go through, like, that phase isn't going to last forever. You're going to have your next big idea, or you're going to have your next burst of energy, especially as a manifester. It really does come in these big bursts where, okay, I'm putting something new out into the world, or I'm rebranding, or whatever big project or offering that you are birthing into the world takes so much energy and effort and time and love and resources. It's a huge push, a huge exhale. The mistake that a lot of us make is that we try to stay there
mm.
because we gain all this momentum and we get all this external validation, and we increase our visibility and we increase our revenue in those moments of push. And we get into this mode of like, okay, let me just see how long I can keep this going, instead of realizing, okay, we've gone through this push, now let's pause and recalibrate, stabilize where we're at, take a look at how we got here, take a look at what worked and what didn't, take a look at how things are moving now and what needs to be shifted in order to get to that next level.
Yeah.
And so that's again like another like pause and take a look. And so that was part of that process for me. Of course, in my mind I didn't have all this organization around it. It was just like I was feeling in my body that this wasn't working and I didn't know what was next, so I had to just like chill.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know and when we are controlling and impulsive and creative and we want this freedom and we're so accomplishment focused, achievement focused, as a lot of these patterns do come from trauma, but they've served us
Mhm.
really well in entrepreneurship. We have to get to the point where we're like, okay, I can't maintain this forever. I can't keep just gaining momentum, gaining momentum, gaining momentum, gaining momentum without stopping at all.
Right.
Like,
Right.
let's get into these phases where, and really like intentionally incorporating those seasons into your business. That's been like huge for me. And it's part of what has allowed me to find some stability within the madness and the mess and the
Mhm.
chaos, because you're intentionally curating that into your process by saying, okay, we're going to pause, you know? So yeah, I
That's
think like that piece is something that a lot of us are missing, but is so
yeah.
necessary for really like figuring out what that next step is.
How do you so what would your advice be for people listening who because I feel like to pause and you spoke about this, you have to have the self-awareness to know that like wow, I need to slow down. So, how do you even get to the point for anyone listening who may be struggling with that of knowing, like, I need to pause? And then the step above, giving yourself that permission because just from, hearing people in the space, and I know when I've had to pause on things, my immediate thought was, well, shit, money still needs to come through. Like my bills don't pause. None of that pauses. So how do I take that step back while the ship keeps running? Like, what would your advice to all of that be?
And I want to just like speak into how valid that is and how that is going to be a part of the process,
Mhm.
especially in the beginning before you've set that foundation that sustains the business, because really that's should be one of the first initial goals of your business, not to, you know, scale. Like scaling is not your first fucking goal in your business.
Mm,
Can we just be
preach.
straight up about that?
Yes.
And
Oh my
and
God.
for some of us, that's never going to be the goal,
Yeah.
and that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay? So, realizing that one of your first goals in your business is to get to the point where all of your expenses are being paid from your business without that crazy like feast or famine.
Yeah.
And so how do you do that? You have to do that in a way that works for you, where that awareness needs to come in, because there are some people who are going to get there by signing X amount of one-on-one clients that stay on for X amount of months. And, they have to allocate their funds, their revenue, in order to cover whatever they need to cover. And that's their baseline. So when they get their next big idea, when they're in that receiver mode, when they're in that play mode, that exploration, resting mode, and their next big idea comes through, it's like they have the creative freedom to explore that idea without their nervous system freaking the fuck out because they
Mhm.
don't know where money is coming to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't really get to the point where you're completely surrendering to your creative urges until that shit is solid.
Yeah.
And so, working with spiritual entrepreneurs and intuitive
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, we want to like pretend that that's not a fact,
Right.
but it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, if you are starting your business as like a hobby, which I basically did,
Mhm.
right? Like all of my finances were taken care of by my partner for several years.
Yeah.
So, like, I have had that privilege of not being in the survival mode, although, like, I have been because trauma. But
Yeah.
when you are in that mode, like, your goal has to be like figuring out what the minimum steady amount of revenue needs to be, and figuring out what is that one thing that comes most naturally to you that feels like it takes almost no energy. How do we maximize that so we can meet that goal so that everything else is a bonus?
Yes. I want to reiterate what you said too about the scaling. Like when you start your business, guys, like it's not about the $0 to $1 million. That's not it. And in my particular journey, I did not scale fast, and I always share that with you guys. And I can't imagine if I did, I would be fucked. I would be fucked in capital letters. And it's like I love how you highlighted all of that because it is so important. And going back to like, what is that one thing that you can do almost effortlessly? It feels joyful, it comes naturally, and focusing in on that. We need so much more of that in this space.
Well, because we're doing it the opposite way.
Right.
We're looking around at everybody else and saying, oh, that really resonates with
Yep.
me. How can I create my own version of that?
Mm-hmm.
I am a manifester. So part of my gift to you and to the world is me saying, whatever you want to exist, you have to create.
Yes.
And so figuring out like, again, this is where the awareness piece comes in, because a lot of people will come to me and say, okay, well, I'm a 6'2" emotional manifesting generator. So what should I be doing in my business to make money? And it's like, no.
Yeah.
Instead, instead, let me ask a series of questions to try to, and understanding your human design can really help me as like, as a guide, as a coach, as a mentor, to eliminate a lot of noise, a lot of options, so that you can choose from fewer options of what to do. But really, it's like you already know what is the thing, like what is the thing that made you start your fucking business,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
For me, it was like it was coaching.
Yeah.
And it's still coaching and having conversations is it for me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how can I maximize that in my business in as many ways as possible? And for me, growing my business has been sort of like stacking ways to do that,
Yeah.
you know? So maybe it just started with a group program, which for me, it started one-on-one, then it was group program, then it was speaking engagement. So like I've kind of layered on pieces, but that real common denominator is me having conversations and coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is it? Is it teaching? I have clients who like love to teach. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, great. How do we take that and maximize it in your business? That becomes your baseline. So it's really like you have to trust that whatever the thing is for you, you will figure out how to maximize it and monetize it.
That's it right there. And with so many people that I speak to, that is the issue, right? Because it's like, okay, well, how do I believe in myself to be able to do it? Right? It's one thing to have that belief, but how do I believe in myself to be able to pull it off? And it's like that's where the healing journey begins, in my opinion. Like that's where it's like you really don't have a choice but to look in the mirror and say, I am so intuitively pulled to do this. Now what the fuck? And I feel such a blockage, and it's like now it's time, and now it's time, and it's such a beautifully confusing journey, but it's like that's really a standstill that I hear with a lot of people, and absolutely one that I've experienced myself. So what is your advice to people who are just like at that point where they are ready to trust themselves, they're ready to trust their gifts, they're ready to trust that intuitive voice, but they don't really know where to begin?
Yeah, I think, support is huge when we get to that place because we are social animals. We are here to feed off of each other's energy. We're here to receive support from others. Part of human design is understanding the whys behind your behavior.
Mm.
So, for instance, I was just talking about this on my Instagram last week about circuitry. When we look at human design circuitry, basically what we're looking at, really, when you look at a human design chart, what you're looking at is like your brain and the things that are colored in or activated or defined in your chart, all the little lines and the colors and things. These are like your brain's path of least resistance. These are the consistent, reliable patterns and behaviors, and, your environment is what determines how those behaviors and energy will be expressed. Okay. So we have individual, tribal, and collective circuitry in human design. So, like, all these behaviors are going to fall under one of these major categories. I'm simplifying here, but um, so for instance, if you have a lot of individual energy, which I do, the themes for you, like really your behavior is driven by this need to creatively express yourself in the now.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, what the fuck is the point of that in human behavior? What is the point of that? Well, the point of that is that the individual brings change. The individual brings mutation. The individual, by expressing themselves in the now, has an impact on the people around them that changes their behavior. So they basically create like a blip in the radar.
Mhm.
So if you know that you have a lot of individual energy, right away you know that you're going to be expressing things that are extremely unique. You're going to be constantly grappling with a fear of rejection. You are here to shake shit up, which can
Mhm.
be very jarring to your nervous system. So you know you're going to have to do some nervous system healing. And you know that if you're not seeing an impact based on your actions and the way that you express, you're going to fall into some melancholy.
Yeah.
Okay. And like tribal circuitry is more rooted in the community and structures and upholding structures for everyone to thrive. And the collective circuitry is more about just like sharing and, science and repetition and the greater good and like everyone having equal opportunity. And so, like, when you're able to look at your chart and understand yourself and your own behavior and like the whys behind your behavior, this is such a gift because this is really like validating what you already deeply know to be true within you. And it's already validating what you intuitively feel called to do. So it's almost like this positive reinforcement for following that intuition, for trusting, for taking that next step. So for me, part of the support is actually looking at other tools that can help affirm what you know intuitively. For some people, this looks like pulling tarot cards.
Mhm.
For some people, this looks like meditating or channeling. For some people, there are different ways that you're going to do this. My clients love the confirmation that their human design gives them. It almost gives them permission to do the scary thing.
Mhm.
And then the other piece, too, what I have found, especially in the last year, this has been a recurring theme for me. Those biggest expansions that I've gone through, and I've gone through some major shit in the last year. What has gotten me through where I'm not only alive, but I feel so incredibly expanded and grounded at the same time, and so like just more whole each time I've gone through an expansion because I have had the safety of a strong support network. So in business, you need to have this in your business.
Absolutely.
I am not a person who says you need to have one-on-one private mentorship all the time because I no, I don't agree with
Mhm.
that. Like,
Mhm.
um, but you need to have some sort of support. So
Yeah.
whether you have just like a business bestie that you hop on Voxer with every other day and just talk about what your goals are, talk about what your struggles are, or you do hire a private coach, or maybe you join a mastermind or a group program, or maybe you start your own local entrepreneur network, whatever, it doesn't matter. You need to have a support system in entrepreneurship or you will not grow.
Yeah.
Like you won't. You will stay where you are. Like maybe you'll grow, but it'll be incrementally. Whereas
Mhm.
surrounding yourself with people who can support you as you make those big moves, especially if there are people in the room who have made them already, that shit will show you that it's not only possible, but it's safe
Mhm.
and they'll support you as you're scared and moving through it. So you need to have the support. And I would say in your personal life too, like for me, part of the biggest growth that I've gone through in my business has been a direct reflection of the growth I've gone through personally. And I've been able to make really big moves in my personal life because I've opened my heart up to true, intimate, real, honest, vulnerable connections with other people.
Oh, absolutely.
And when you can do that and you can feel safe in that, you can do literally anything because you're allowing yourself to be fully seen and supported in your messiness.
Mhm.
And you're able to make these really big moves and be okay. And when you see that you can do that, and then you go to your business, you're like, yeah, fuck it.
Yeah.
Like, I got it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So, whatever is going to help you feel like affirmed in these intuitive nudges that you're having and these creative urges that you're having, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's, human design reading or astrology
Mhm.
reading or breath work, whatever's going to help you just anchor into like trusting that intuitive nudge and support as you move through it because it's not going to be easy. That's another misconception that once you have the clarity, it's just ease from there. Like the hard part is just getting clarity on what to do. No, the hard part is actually doing the thing that you know you need to do and like not quitting or dying.
Yes,
So,
exactly. And like
you know,
being your biggest cheerleader through that because like right it's like knowing okay I have this thing on my heart and I can't stop thinking about it and my intuition like keeps coming up in meditation or keeps coming up when I'm on a walk or whatever and it's like all right it's time to do it and I'm so terrified of this and that and for everyone listening like go back a few episodes with my channeling one and me telling you guys that I can channel if you watch that on YouTube I'm like visibly scared shitless but it was so on my heart that I could not do it. So I can absolutely 100% like all of that just made so much sense. And it's like, just to echo what you said, like find your validation of what you need and doing a human design reading, everyone is so powerful. So powerful. And at the end, Crystal will let you guys know how you can get in touch and I'll put all of the links to her in the show notes in case you guys want to do a reading there. But Before we wrap up, I'm so curious to know, Krystal, what is one thing that you wish you could go back and tell yourself at the start of your business?
You will do it.
Ooh, ooh, I felt that.
You will do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really it, because like I said, everything is figure outable. And as a 1-3 profile in human design, I am here to learn things the hard way, and
Yeah.
that's been a challenging fact to own, because who wants to be told they're going to have to learn everything the hard way? Who wants to be told that the only way you're going to learn what works for you is by first learning what doesn't?
Mm.
It's not like the easiest thing, but I think once I've learned how to truly accept that and love that about myself,
Mhm.
it is a fun thing because it takes so much pressure off of making a mistake, because I know I'm here to make mistakes, and we all are as humans. And I
Right.
think that's part of my gift as well, as being a 1-3, is being like, if you have an intuitive nudge, just take one little baby step and see how it works out. Like, stop trying to like skip all the steps and get to the end goal, because the process is what will shape you into the person who reaches that end goal.
Mhm.
You can't, everyone says like, show up as that person right now. Yes and no, because you really can't, but you can take actions that mimic
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think like for me, as I started, it's like, you will do it. Just keep trusting. Just keep
Oh,
trusting. Make the
it's so
mistakes. It's
powerful.
okay. You know?
Yeah. It's so powerful. And it really does come down to the journey because that's what builds character. Like, imagine if you were able to just always skip to the end goal. It's like, this is where the character is built. When you're pushed up against the wall and you have no choice but to make it work, you make it work. And I just like the most empowering, badass energy I feel from you saying that. Like, it just, that level of empowerment that you must experience doing that, like, just internally, it feels so huge and expansive.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm, I love that. How can people get in touch with you, Krystal? How can they do a reading with you? How can they join your community? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I hang out on Instagram quite a bit, at Krystal E. Woods. I sometimes will do like free little readings in my stories, and I post a lot of content on human design. So if you're kind of like, what are you even talking about? Go to my Instagram and binge all of my free content there. I also have a podcast called Under the Surface that I'm excited to have you on soon. So you can check that out. And of course, always send me DMs. I love when listeners hear something that I said and it lands with them and they tell me about it. That, like I said, I love to feel my impact. So
Mm,
let me know if something was said on this episode that really landed with you. Send me a DM on Instagram. And otherwise, I have lots of different resources for purchase on my website. I also run a certification program for other coaches and practitioners who want to learn how to use human design in their own businesses and with their clients. And we will begin our next cohort in the beginning of February.
amazing.
So yeah, lots of new things coming up that I'm not ready to announce yet. So just follow me on Instagram and you'll see.
Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to see all of that unravel. And February is going to be here before you know it, everyone. So if you are interested in joining that certification, the details are down below in the show notes. Krystal, thank you so much. Seriously.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks to everyone.
Did you enjoy today's episode? If so, I would be super appreciative if you left a review and a rating and shared this with a friend so that I can continue to bring you value every single week. I'll see you next time.